Claimed if you. Okay, we are going to take a break and then we're going to come back with Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America. This is Farron and Brian on The Real News here on WSIC 1400, WDSL 1520. When we come back after the top of the hour.
Over 6,000 satisfied customers. Full line of truck accessories. Also, we make signs, banners, vehicle lettering, graphics. That's Custom Accessories, Highway 21.
Alright, we are back on The Real News and we are joined with Mr. Pratt, Executive Director of Gun Owners of America. I want to thank you for joining us today. How are you doing today, sir?
Just fine. Thanks for having me with you.
Oh, glad to have you with us. And I would like to start today by asking you, what should we be most concerned about under this new administration? We know Obama is a gun grabber and he's anti-Second Amendment. I understand there's a bill introduced into Congress, H.R. 45, that would require a federal license for all handguns and semi-automatics, including the ones you already own. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about this and maybe any other legislation that we should be made aware of?
You bet. Well, that is a bill, H.R. 45, that was introduced by Representative Bobby Rush of Chicago, and I don't think something like that is going to be brought up for a vote up or down in the near future, but what I'm concerned about is that something like this H.R. 45, this license for all the guns that everybody either already has or would get in the future, that could get stuck into some kind of a big spending bill the way anti-gun legislation has been enacted in the past. If it's stuck in a 1,000 or a 2,000-page bill that just comes out 2-3 hours before people get to vote on it, then that's the time when they can slip something like this thing through. Representative Rush has put this bill in to require the registration of all firearms, basically, all, as you said, all semi-automatics and all handguns, and if you go through the process, you'd have to get yourself picture taken, a thumbprint or fingerprints, you'd have to take an exam, you'd have to pay a fee, and then you might get the license. And if you didn't, of course, you'd lose your guns, and during the term of the license, that would be also at the discretion of the Attorney General. You might lose it, might lose your license and your guns at any time during that period of the license. When you have your license, then they will let you keep your guns only as long as you keep them in a way that they can't be used for self-defense. You'd have to keep them all locked up, which is an indication that Representative Rush doesn't really think that folks need guns for what guns were put into the Constitution for, namely to defend selves and country. So this is a very radical piece of legislation, and it's all the more ironic that it would be put in by somebody like Representative Rush, who back in the 60s was a thug, a street thug, who was one of the founders of the Black Panthers in Illinois. A couple of his co-founder friends were actually gunned down in a gun battle with Chicago police. And subsequently, Representative Rush served 5 months in jail for illegal weapons charges. So I guess that's his qualification for introducing anti-gun legislation. But this is something I believe that we should take seriously because, former Representative Rahm Emanuel, who's now the Chief of Staff, was a fellow Chicago congressman with Representative Rush in the last Congress, and he was a co-sponsor of this bill at that time. So I think this is something that we can conclude Obama and his administration would like to impose on American gun owners. And frankly, the only reason you can think that they want it is to make it easier to confiscate firearms at some time in the future. Registration, which this bill is, doesn't do anything to take care of solving crime. Hawaii has had a handgun registry, and so has Canada, since the 30s, and neither one of those registries have ever been used to solve a crime. So you got to believe that they got something else that they really have in mind, since they should know that there's no crime-solving utility to these kinds of pieces of legislation. So yeah, H.R. 45 is a bad piece of work, and I think it's all the more dangerous because I would expect that they might try to slip it in right at the end of a big legislative process when nobody has much of a chance to look at it. Much the way they did the stimulus bill, the government stimulus bill, where they were supposed to, by their own promises, have 5 days available for people to look at the bill. People voted on the bill without ever having read the bill, which is not too surprising since they do most of their voting the same way. So we got our hands full with this Congress. It's a hostile Congress. It's a hostile administration. They don't believe that citizens should own guns. They don't believe in the Second Amendment. And we're, I think, faced with a real challenge that these folks, if they think they can get away with a gun vote, they will try it. The only thing that's going to hold them back is the thought that folks like us are watching, because they know that the Democrats lost the Congress back in 1994 when they put through the Clinton gun ban, and Clinton himself said that was a mistake, shouldn't have done that. Well, it was a mistake politically from his point of view. It wasn't necessarily a mistake in terms of what he was trying to do to disarm American citizens, American gun owners. So we can expect that if they think they can get away with a vote, then that's when they're going to try it. But if we succeed in identifying legislation as gun control, then we still have a very good chance to stop it. And that's what has happened right now with the D.C. Congressional vote measure. There's a bill that came out of the Senate to give the District of Columbia a vote in the House of Representatives, which is unconstitutional because they're not a state. They're an enclave of the federal government. And yet, when the thing left the Senate, it had a little addition put onto it, a measure that said, okay, you want to have a vote in the U.S. House, you can't have this unconstitutional gun ban that you've got still, in spite of the Supreme Court ruling, in the District of Columbia. And this amendment that was put up by Senator Ensign of Nevada pretty much strips out most of the gun control in the District of Columbia. That passed pretty handily, 62 to 36 in the Senate. So now it's over in the House, and the immediate response of the leadership in the House, people like Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, was, we're just going to strip that out, that nasty gun measure, and then we'll send it back to the Senate without it so that they can vote and give the district their vote in the House. Well, first of all, that would be a very anti-gun vote. The District of Columbia seems to only want to elect people who want to take away their own guns. It's bizarre, but that's the way they are. I guess it's because so many of them work for the federal government. But in any case, those are the facts. And the gun issue has stalled this bill. This is something that the Democrats in the House of Representatives and in the Senate want very much to be able to pass. But they also don't want to be on record voting for gun control. And so the bill has been stalled for the last 2+ weeks as it sat in the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi and the other anti-gun leadership in the House are trying to figure out exactly how they're going to disentangle this mess that they've got on their hands, and they haven't been able to figure that out yet. So I think it's very encouraging that when we manage to show that something is a gun vote, the House of Representatives will just come to a halt. And that's why it's so important that gun owners don't give up and continue